Welcome to My Sew Bliss. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really easy and simple boxy pencil bag. It's super quick and perfect for beginners. Even if you've never sewn a zipper, this is going to be a great tutorial for you because it's super easy. This is the third video in a three-part series that I'm doing for back to school season. I'm showing you how to make 3 different pencil pouches. So I made this boxy one, and then I'll put links down below and in the iCard for the other 2 videos that you can go check out. They're really awesome, and I just like how different they all are. Now, before we start this tutorial, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe so you will know when all the tutorials are coming out. I'm going to be showing you how to make this bag right here. It's a little bit smaller than this bigger one. If you want to know the dimensions on this one, I'll put a link down below to my blog post I did on all the bags, and you can check that out. So for this one, you're going to need 2 pieces of the outside fabric that is going to be 8 by 12, and then I did 2 pieces of different fabric for the lining. So there's the lining, and I did 2 that are 8 by 12 as well. And then I also put some fusible interfacing on the inside of it, and that is also an 8 by 12 piece. Now, if you don't have interfacing, I like to use a little thicker interfacing because then it just makes the bag really sturdy. You can also use fleece. For mine that I use in this video, it's actually a fusible fleece, and it worked really well, and I really loved it. But you can just find that at Joann. I'll put links down below for where you could order it as well. You're also going to need 1 piece that is 3 by 7, and that's going to create our strap right here. And then I used a 18-inch long zipper for this. It's all-purpose zipper, non-separating, and you could get a little shorter than that. I just had an 18-inch on hand, and then I trimmed it. You'll see in the video how I trim it. But anything shorter, you probably don't want to go shorter than a 12-inch, especially depending on what size your bag is. But yeah, that worked really well for me, and I really liked how trimming it, I got really close to the edges. So, and then you're just going to need all of your basic sewing supplies. So let's get started. For our first step, I'm going to take my zipper right sides up, and then I'm going to take the fashion fabric or the outside fabric and lay it right on top of the zipper. And I'm going to line mine up, just center it over the fabric. The end will be right on the edge, and I'll just pin that in place. And then this is going to hang over a little bit right now, and then I'm going to trim it later because I have a bigger zipper, so that's just fine. We can pin that in place, and then I'm going to flip that over and take my lining. So this is my lining fabric, and I'll put this piece of fleece on the wrong side of it. So this is the right side of my lining fabric, and I'm going to lay the right side on top. So right sides are going to be together. The fashion fabric and the lining fabric, right sides together. The zipper is upside down, and I'm matching up the sides. This is a scrap piece of fusible, so that's why there's little pieces missing. But I just got to use every last bit of it. So now I'm just pinning all of the layers together. Now I can take this over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew on this side. I don't really like sewing on the fleece. And I'm just going to stitch right along the edge of where the coils are. So you can kind of feel it as you stitch. I obviously don't want to stitch the coils, but I just want to stitch right next to them. So this fabric will lay nicely right next to it in the end. Now for all of these steps, I am making sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end. So once that is done, I can just flip my fabrics over so that I expose the zipper. So we have them all on one side. And now we're going to do the same thing with the other side of the zipper and our other fabrics. So here I have my zipper right sides up. I'll put the outside fabric on top, and I'm just lining up the edges and putting it right on edge of the zipper so that we can sew that on. And then I can flip it over and put my lining with my interfacing on and put that right sides together again. So this time it'll have the right side of the lining on this. So don't get that confused, but I'm just lining it up with the edge of the zipper, pinning through all the layers. And then I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine and stitch that down again. I like to stitch on this side just right along next to the coils. Once that other side is sewn, I'm going to flip the fabrics out. So a lining on one side and the fabric on one side, like the top fabric, and then another top fabric and the lining on the other side, and the zipper is going to be right in the middle. So now I'm going to press it really well before I do my top stitching. That's just going to help our top stitching lay really nice. Once it's all ironed and looks really nice, I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine again, and I'm just going to top stitch right along this folded edge on either side. And this is going to help prevent the fabric from getting stuck in our zipper when it's going up and down. So I'm just going to come right close to the edge, right to the fold, and about 1/8 of an inch away, I'm just going to top stitch all the way down to the bottom. Once you have your top stitching complete on both sides, then we're going to put the outside fabric right sides together and line up your edges. And I'm going to pin this bottom edge. Now I'm ready to take it over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch right along this edge. I'm going to stitch it 1/2 of an inch. And if you have a serger, I recommend serging that so that you don't have any fraying edges. If you don't have a serger, do a straight stitch and then do a zigzag stitch. That will help with the fraying. After you have that seam sewn, I'm going to set that off to the side, and I'm going to take my strap piece and I'm going to iron it really good. And then I'm actually going to iron the edges as well, so that way we don't have to turn it right sides out, because that's always really frustrating and annoying with small pieces. So I'm just turning it over 1/4 of an inch. This is wrong side, so the wrong side's together. And I'm going to do that on both sides of it. Just turn it over 1/4 of an inch. So that way I can then fold it right sides together and match up those edges. They're not raw anymore. They're just that rolled edge. So, and then I can iron that down. And now I can take this over to my sewing machine and stitch down. I'll probably just start here, stitch down, and then stitch around the whole thing, so it just gives it a nice finish. Once you have the strap finished, I just did it top stitched all the way around, really close to the edge. It was about 1/8 of an inch, so finished it off really nice. Now I'm ready to attach the strap to the bag. So here I have my bag just how I left it, and I'm going to open that up a little bit. So here's my outside fabric, and I'm just going to put the seam that we created right on top of the zipper right here. So I'm just putting that right on top, so it'll be just right in the center. And we just want to fold it like that. And then I'm going to go to the opposite side of where the zipper tab is right now and actually flip it so the zipper is up. So then I can take my strap and put the raw edges or short edges together, and I'm going to tuck that inside of the bag and line it up with the raw edges of the bag right now. And I just like putting that right on top of that seam that we created, so it'll be right here. And I can pin that in place, because now we're actually going to take that over to our sewing machine and stitch this whole side closed. So it's kind of a lot of layers right now, but we'll just pin that in place, and then it's ready to be sewn. And while I'm over there, I'm going to do this side as well, but before I pin that, I'm actually going to take my zipper and open it up just a couple of inches like that, just so we can flip it right sides out when we're done. So we have an opening. If you forget to do that, you're going to have to unpick something or kind of mess with your zipper tab to open that back up. And you want to make sure the zipper stays close together. and doesn't separate and cause like a hole or something. So just make sure they're lined up right next to each other. Just like that. And don't stab yourself like I keep doing. Okay, so now I'm ready to take it over to my sewing machine. And again, we're gonna stitch at 1/2 inch. If you have a serger, I would serge it as well. If you don't have a serger, just do a zigzag stitch. It's gonna finish off those seams really nicely and make sure they don't fray. Once you have those seams sewn, it should look a little bit like this side of it. But now we're going to make it into the boxy look that it is, and we're gonna do this to it. So I already finished off this side, and I just wanted to give you guys a look at what we're going to be doing. And now we're gonna figure it out on this side. So I'm taking my piece, I have a seam gauge and a little marking tool. I'm gonna take one of my corners, and looking at the corner this way, I'm going to pinch it. So I'm holding the seam and then the folded edge right here. I'm gonna pinch it so that that seam is now laying flat on the back. I don't want any bulk, I just want it laying perfectly flat. And it makes like a little triangle. The seam is flat. I'm gonna turn it to the side that doesn't have a seam, but still making sure that's flat and no puckers or any extra bulk, because it's really bulky right now, is there. I'm gonna lay that down and take my seam gauge, and I'm gonna come down and figure out where it measures 3 inches across. So I need to go a little higher, a little more to the right, and that looks about right. And I want to make sure that it's centered and even and the line is straight. So once I find that 3, I'm gonna draw my line across. And now I'm gonna take that over to my sewing machine. Now, if you need to, you can pin that. I find that since it's so bulky, I'm just gonna like hold it with my fingers like this and take it over to my sewing machine. And I'm gonna stitch from the top down to the bottom. Make sure you back stitch at the top and the bottom. And I'm gonna do that on every corner. And that's gonna give us this look. So we'll come to that point. So here I have all my corners sewn, and it looks kind of bulky and just, it's making a box though, so we're almost there. Next, I'm gonna take those corners and I'm gonna trim them. So if you are nervous about if you did it right, you can turn at least one of the sides, if not the whole thing, right sides out. And although it'll be kind of bulky, you can make sure there's no puckers. There were a few times that I had a few puckers in fabric because of that seam that I was talking about, this one right here. So just check that out, make sure it looks good, make sure it's sitting right. It should make a boxy look and be like that on both sides. So mine looks really good. I'm really pleased with it. So I'm going to now trim these corners that we sewed. So I'll take my scissors and I'm just gonna trim it at 1/4 inch. And again, like I've said before, I'm gonna take mine over to my serger and I'm gonna serge that edge just to give it a clean finish, because we are gonna see that inside the bag. If you don't have a serger, a zigzag stitch or even pinking shears are really great to finish that off so it doesn't fray. So I'm gonna do that on every corner. After those edges are cut off and sewn, it'll look just like this. So we're ready to flip it to the right sides. And I got my point turner out just to help with those bulky corners, to make sure they come out really nicely. And it'll look really great. Now, once you have your bag turned right sides out and all the corners poked out, you are done with your boxy pencil bag. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe, and make sure to check out the other 2 videos in the back to school pencil pouch sew along that I did. The whole series is on YouTube now. I'll put links down below for that. If you want to see more sewing tips and tricks and tutorials, make sure to check out my Instagram at My Sew Bliss, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!